There comes a moment in every person's life when their certainty becomes too small for the size of their destiny. A moment when the knowledge that once gave confidence begins to limit vision, and the beliefs that once made life simple now make progress impossible. This quiet tension between what we think we know and what's actually true is the birthplace of transformation. Think Again by Adam Grant invites us to step into that sacred space, to loosen our grip on the familiar, and to discover the power that lies not in defending our opinions, but in questioning them. It is a call to intellectual humility in a world where information explodes, change accelerates, and the ability to rethink becomes not just useful, but essential. If you love powerful, insightful, and life-changing books, then you found the right channel. Every week, we break down the ideas that transform mindsets, elevate success, and shift lives. So don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you'll want to catch every book we review. Let's continue. People often assume success comes from accumulating knowledge or having the right answers, but Grant reframes the entire conversation. Real power lies in the ability to update one's mind. The most successful people, the most innovative organizations, and the most resilient societies are not those who cling stubbornly to old conclusions, but those who revise their thinking as new evidence emerges. This is why companies like Blockbuster fall, while companies like Netflix rise, why startups disrupt industries faster than giants can react, why individuals who adapt thrive, while those who refuse to rethink slowly fade into irrelevance. Rethinking is not weakness, it is evolution. The irony is that humans naturally resist this evolution. Once we form an opinion, we get attached to it. We defend it like territory, protect it like treasure, and nurture it like identity. We behave like preachers, insisting our beliefs are sacred truths, prosecutors trying to prove others wrong, or politicians seeking approval for our existing positions. But rarely do we act like scientists, curious, open, willing to be wrong. Grant argues that adopting the scientist mindset is the key to unlocking hidden potential. Because science is not about certainty, it is about discovery. It is about asking, what if I'm mistaken? What alternative possibilities exist? What does the evidence actually show? This mindset is not just for academics or researchers. It is for parents raising children in a rapidly evolving world, professionals whose industries change overnight, leaders navigating uncertainty, students preparing for a future full of unknowns, and everyday people facing choices that shape their entire lives. In a world marked by political polarization, misinformation, and emotional overconfidence, thinking again has become a survival skill. One of the most profound observations Grant makes is that people who are truly competent tend to underestimate themselves, while those who know very little often feel supremely confident. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect, a global pattern that has influenced everything from social media debates to presidential elections. An individual who has read one article suddenly feels like an expert in epidemiology. Someone who watched one motivational video feels qualified to teach life principles. A person with minimal understanding of finance feels comfortable giving investment advice. We live in a time when opinions travel faster than facts and confidence spreads more quickly than competence. This paradox becomes clearer when we examine real events. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, countless people on social platforms debated complex medical issues with absolute certainty despite having little or no scientific background. Meanwhile, many medical experts spoke with caution, emphasizing uncertainty because they understood the complexity of virology. The people with the deepest knowledge were often the least absolute, while those with the least knowledge often spoke the loudest. Grant's message becomes unmistakable. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. Recognizing the limits of knowledge is not self-doubt, it is awareness. and awareness becomes a doorway to deeper thinking. When someone acknowledges, "I might be wrong," they open themselves to better ideas, more accurate information, and healthier relationships. This is why the best leaders are not those who insist on always being right, but those who continually update their choices based on new data. When Satya Nadella took over Microsoft, he shifted the company culture from being a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. That single shift breathes life into a company that many believed had passed its prime. By encouraging employees to question old assumptions and rethink their strategies, Nadella reignited innovation, transforming Microsoft into one of the world's most valuable companies. This principle translates beautifully into personal life as well. Many people cling to outdated identities that no longer suit their growth. Someone who was once shy in childhood carries that identity into adulthood, refusing leadership opportunities even though they've developed strong communication skills. Someone who believed they were bad at math because of one difficult teacher continues avoiding analytical careers that could transform their life. Someone who was told as a teenager that they were not creative never attempts art, writing, or entrepreneurship, not because they lack talent, but because they never rethought an old conclusion. Grant urges us to examine these inherited narratives, not as final truths, but as starting points that deserve revision.
Thinking again also requires courage, because questioning ourselves can feel like destabilizing the foundations we stand on. But Grant emphasizes that true confidence is not the assurance that you will always be right. It is the willingness to explore possibilities without fear of being wrong. This is why continually rethinking becomes a powerful tool for uncovering strengths, avoiding unnecessary mistakes, and adjusting when circumstances demand change. One of the most powerful examples of this comes from the aviation industry. Pilots undergo continuous training, not to reinforce certainty, but to practice rethinking under pressure. They learn to update their decisions moment by moment based on new information. This flexibility in thinking has saved thousands of lives. Yet in everyday life, many people refuse to rethink, even when presented with overwhelming evidence, simply because pride gets in the way. Grant challenges this instinct by reframing the act of changing one's mind as a mark of strength. We see this principle play out across global cultures. In Japan, for example, the concept of kaizen, continuous improvement, is embedded into personal and corporate life. Rather than defending the status quo, Japanese industries consistently seek ways to improve, rethink, refine, and innovate. This openness has allowed them to dominate technologically advanced fields for decades. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, companies regularly hold failure postmortems, openly analyzing what went wrong rather than hiding mistakes. The goal is not to blame individuals, but to rethink processes, learn from errors, and make better decisions moving forward. When we apply these insights to interpersonal relationships, the impact becomes even more profound. Many conflicts arise not from what we know, but from what we think we know. We assume motives, misinterpret intentions, or rely too heavily on past patterns. But relationships thrive when we rethink our assumptions about others. A spouse who pauses to question their interpretations communicates with more empathy. A manager who rethinks their expectations becomes more effective. A parent who rethinks discipline strategies becomes more nurturing and impactful. Grant's message echoes a timeless truth. Curiosity heals misunderstandings, while certainty often magnifies them. The importance of rethinking becomes even clearer when considering the world's most influential innovators. Take someone like Elon Musk. Regardless of whether one agrees with him or not, his achievements have been fueled by an obsession with questioning assumptions in industries many believed were unchanged. Rockets, cars, energy, transportation. Or consider the founders of Airbnb, who rethought the entire concept of hospitality during a time when hotels dominated global travel. Their willingness to challenge long-standing norms created one of the most disruptive companies of the 21st century. These stories show that rethinking is not optional for success. It is the birthplace of breakthroughs. And yet, ironically, most people are trained to value consistency over accuracy. From childhood, we are rewarded for memorizing answers, not questioning them. In school, changing your answer is considered suspicious or indecisive. In professional life, leaders who revise decisions are accused of flip-flopping. But Grant argues that holding on to outdated beliefs is far more dangerous than changing them. The world changes, and those who refuse to adapt fall behind, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked the willingness to rethink. The process of rethinking also forces us to confront our blind spots. Everyone has them. Biases we don't notice, beliefs we never question, habits we've repeated for so long they feel natural. Grant emphasizes that blind spots are not a problem in themselves. The danger lies in refusing to acknowledge them. When people cling to the illusion of complete objectivity, they become trapped. But when they humbly admit that certain perspectives might be flawed, they gain opportunities to grow. This is why some of the most transformative changes in society have come from individuals willing to question their own assumptions. Activists challenging injustice, scientists questioning established facts, entrepreneurs reimagining stagnant markets. Grant also highlights one of the underappreciated skills in modern society, the ability to engage in constructive disagreement. Many people avoid conflict because they fear tension, but healthy debate is essential for rethinking. Disagreement can strengthen ideas, refine perspectives, and reveal blind spots we could not see alone. This is why some of the world's top research teams encourage open debate, why forward-thinking companies hire devil's advocates, and why democratic societies treat dissent as a cornerstone of progress. The goal is not to win arguments, but to elevate understanding. However, this form of disagreement requires emotional maturity. It requires separating ideas from identity, recognizing that we are not our opinions, and that changing our mind does not diminish our worth. It requires listening to understand rather than listening to respond. Grant's work is a reminder that intellectual humility doesn't weaken us. It makes us wiser, stronger, and more capable of navigating an unpredictable world.
And once we begin questioning those stories, a door opens. A door to possibilities we never imagined, strengths we never realized we had, and futures that once felt impossible. Thinking again is, at its core, an act of liberation. Rethinking begins to reveal its true power when we understand that every belief we hold is part of a larger internal ecosystem, a network of ideas that support one another. When one belief shifts, others begin to move with it. This interconnectedness can feel destabilizing at first, but it also unlocks remarkable freedom. It allows us to transform not just individual thoughts, but entire patterns of behavior. This is why rethinking is not a momentary decision, but a continuous practice. Just as physical health requires ongoing exercise, intellectual and emotional health require regularly updating our understanding of the world. Grant emphasizes that the most fulfilled people are not those who cling to rigid identities, but those who allow themselves the flexibility to grow in unpredictable directions. Consider someone who entered college believing they must become a doctor because their parents expected it. Every class, every choice, every conversation becomes filtered through that identity. Yet, if that person dares to rethink the expectation and ask, "What do I truly want?" they might discover a passion for architecture or filmmaking or psychology, something they would never have considered if the initial assumption went unquestioned. Entire careers, relationships, and destinies can pivot off a single moment of honest rethinking. Grant's message becomes unmistakable. The courage to revise your identity is the courage to reclaim your life. This courage is not only personal, it has shaped global progress. Think of Malala Yousafzai, who challenged the belief that girls should not receive education in regions controlled by extremism, or Greta Thunberg, who disrupted global complacency about climate change.
or Nelson Mandela, who rethought the dominant narrative of vengeance and instead chose reconciliation. Each example demonstrates that meaningful change arises when individuals refuse to accept the assumptions handed to them and instead ask, is there a better way? Rethinking empowers people to rewrite norms, disrupt injustice, and introduce new possibilities for humanity. Grant also explores the uncomfortable truth that we often cling to outdated beliefs because they make us feel safe, even when they are inaccurate. For instance, outdated stereotypes persist not because they are true, but because they provide simple explanations for complex social dynamics. Similarly, many people resist technological change because it disrupts their sense of competence. When new systems, apps, or tools appear, the learning curve feels like a threat to one's self-image. But those who flourish in times of rapid transformation are those who see learning not as evidence of inadequacy, but as an adventure of growth. In recent years, entire industries have been reshaped by individuals who embraced rethinking while others resisted it. The global shift toward remote work, for example, required millions of employees and managers to rethink long-standing assumptions about productivity, trust, and workplace structure. Companies that were rigid in their thinking struggled, but companies that rethought quickly, implementing flexible schedules, results-based evaluation, and digital collaboration, not only survived, but flourished. Employees, too, who rethought their work styles, discovered new autonomy, better work-life balance, and opportunities previously inaccessible. Grant highlights that rethinking often appears first as a disruption, but ultimately becomes an expansion. On a personal level, this mindset helps prevent burnout and stagnation. Many people find themselves stuck in routines that no longer serve their growth simply because those routines once worked. The same job that once brought pride now feels draining. The same habits that once helped now limit potential. Yet instead of rethinking, people cling to familiarity because the thought of change is intimidating. Grant encourages us to treat these moments not as signs of failure, but as invitations to rethink our path. It is in these transitions that reinvention becomes possible. To illustrate this, consider the rise of mid-career professionals who completely transform their lives by embracing rethinking. Former teachers becoming data analysts, nurses becoming entrepreneurs, engineers becoming writers. These shifts were once considered rare, but are increasingly common. Individuals rethink their strengths, their desires, and the assumptions that once confined them. This is the same principle Adam Grant identifies in top-performing workers. They do not climb a single ladder, they build new ladders when necessary. Grant argues that this mindset also improves decision-making. When people cling to old assumptions, they make predictable, limited choices. But when they adopt a scientist's mindset, they test ideas, gather evidence, and make decisions based on accuracy rather than ego. This approach saved countless lives in South Korea during the early stages of the pandemic. Instead of defending national pride or relying solely on old playbooks, the government continually revised strategies, updated protocols, and adjusted decisions based on real-time data. Meanwhile, other countries that clung to political certainty or nationalistic confidence suffered dramatically higher casualties. Rethinking became a matter of life and death.
When rethinking is practiced collectively, it becomes a force for organizational innovation. Grant highlights how some companies hold challenge networks, groups of colleagues who are encouraged to critique ideas, reveal blind spots, and provide dissenting opinions. Unlike support networks that aim to reassure, challenge networks aim to sharpen thinking. Pixar uses such networks in its creative process, allowing directors and writers to revise storylines dozens of times before a film is produced. Netflix used similar approaches when reevaluating its DVD by mail business model, leading to one of the most successful pivots in modern business history. Grant's insight is clear. The best ideas are not protected, they are refined through rethinking. The challenge for most people is the disagreement feels uncomfortable.
It triggers defensiveness and ego protection. Yet Grant shows that disagreement, when approached with curiosity rather than hostility, becomes a powerful tool for growth. Studies have shown that when teams include individuals who hold different perspectives, they produce more innovative solutions, but only when members feel psychologically safe to express dissent. Leaders who foster open dialogue, who welcome criticism, and who model humility create environments where rethinking becomes a natural collective habit. This becomes even more important as we recognize that the world's most pressing problems, climate change, inequality, technological ethics, cannot be solved with old thinking. They require fresh perspectives, unconventional ideas, and a willingness to revise approaches repeatedly. The mindset that this is how it has always been done becomes a liability. Grant challenges society to embrace the mindset that this is how it could be done differently. Rethinking is also essential in building resilience. Many people believe resilience is the ability to endure hardship without breaking, but Grant reframes it as the ability to update strategies when circumstances shift. During the 2023 tech layoffs, thousands of employees found themselves displaced. Those who fixated on reclaiming their previous roles suffered the most emotional distress. But those who embraced rethinking, learning new skills, exploring unrelated industries, networking in different circles, discovered opportunities that aligned more with their evolving strengths. Resilience, in Grant's view, is not stubborn perseverance, but adaptive reinvention. We see this truth reflected in nature as well. Animals that rigidly cling to one food source perish during environmental changes, while those that adapt diversify and thrive. Forests regenerate not by resisting fire, but by rethinking what growth means, allowing destruction to clear space for new possibilities. The same applies to human life. Rethinking allows us to reinterpret setbacks as catalysts. Another hidden advantage of rethinking is that it deepens emotional intelligence. When we question our assumptions about people, we become less judgmental and more compassionate. Instead of assuming we know why someone behaves in a certain way, we pause to consider alternative explanations. A colleague who seems distant may be struggling with personal challenges. A friend who reacts harshly may be overwhelmed. A stranger who appears rude may be battling unseen pressures. Reinterpreting interpretations creates space for empathy, and empathy strengthens connection. This principle transforms communication. Instead of debating to win, we communicate to understand. Instead of reacting defensively, we respond thoughtfully. People who practice this kind of intentional communication become magnets for trust. They build stronger friendships, healthier marriages, and more effective workplaces. Grant's insight is clear. Rethinking makes relationships flourish because it encourages us to stay curious about others rather than impose outdated assumptions onto them. In a world where division grows deeper and polarization intensifies, the ability to rethink becomes a tool for healing. Political conversations, for example, often devolve into battles of certainty rather than exchanges of ideas. Each side becomes entrenched, unwilling to revise its stance. But when people courageously ask, "What if the other perspective has something to teach me?" new pathways for understanding emerge. This is how progress happens in democracies, not through rigid ideological purity, but through the continual rethinking of policies, values, and approaches. Grant also reveals that people who rethink regularly are more creative. Creativity is not simply generating new ideas, it is letting go of old ones. Many breakthroughs arise when people abandon outdated assumptions. The smartphone emerged because engineers rethought what a phone could be. The electric car gained traction when innovators rethought what was possible. Even everyday inventions such as streaming platforms, ride-sharing apps, and digital payment systems were born when individuals questioned norms that others accepted without hesitation. This demonstrates an important truth. Innovation flourishes when the fear of being wrong
fades. Grant encourages us to redefine mistakes not as failures, but as data. When children learn to walk, they fall hundreds of times, yet they never conclude they aren't meant to walk. They simply adjust. Adults, however, avoid experimenting because they fear embarrassment. Rethinking liberates us from this trap by reframing mistakes as essential to mastery. This shift in mindset allows people to pursue bold dreams. When you rethink your fears, you become free to attempt things that once seemed impossible. When you rethink your limits, you discover strength you didn't know you had. When you rethink your assumptions about success, you realize that your path may not look like anyone else's, and that's exactly what makes it extraordinary.
And beneath these insights lies a deeper message. Rethinking is not merely a cognitive exercise, but a spiritual and emotional practice. It invites humility, curiosity, patience, courage, and compassion. It helps us evolve not only intellectually, but personally. It transforms our relationship with ourselves. Grant's work reminds us that every belief is temporary, every conclusion is a draft, and every certainty is a bridge to a better question. When we embrace this philosophy, life becomes not a rigid journey toward a fixed destination, but a dynamic exploration. Growth becomes infinite. This is where the heart of Think Again beats the strongest. The recognition that the ability to revise our thoughts may be the single greatest predictor of success, happiness, adaptability, and wisdom. The most remarkable turning point in rethinking comes when people stop seeing knowledge as a finish line and start seeing it as a horizon. Always moving, always expanding, always pulling you forward. By the time someone truly absorbs this truth, their identity stops clinging to answers and starts embracing possibilities. Grant argues repeatedly that the most dangerous thing in the world is not ignorance, but certainty. The belief that what we know is all there is to know. And the moment a person recognizes that their certainty is a cage of their own making, they begin to experience a freedom that few people ever taste. This liberation becomes particularly relevant in a world where social media rewards confidence over accuracy, where people are pressured to express opinions quickly rather than reflect deeply, and where public identity is often shaped by how emphatically we defend our beliefs rather than how honestly we question them. But the people who rise above this noise, the ones who create lasting impact, are the ones courageous enough to slow down, step back, and think again, even when the world is rushing forward. One of the most illuminating global examples of this shift can be seen in the story of Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. When he took over leadership in 2014, Microsoft had earned the reputation of being rigid, overly competitive internally, and resistant to outside ideas. The culture was built around knowing rather than learning. Nadella transformed the company by encouraging employees to adopt the posture of a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. That single mindset shift revitalized innovation, created collaborative openness, and reignited creativity across teams. Microsoft's market value skyrocketed, not because they discovered something new, but because they rediscovered the power of questioning old assumptions. This same shift, when applied to individuals, can ignite a level of personal transformation just as dramatic. Another insight from Grant's work becomes clear here. When people cling to outdated beliefs, they often do so because those beliefs provide comfort, familiarity, or a sense of mastery. But progress, whether personal or societal, rarely happens inside comfort. Consider the way industries rise and fall in the United States. Blockbuster Video, at its height, was confident that customers would always prefer physical rentals.
They believed their business model was too ingrained to fail. Meanwhile, Netflix kept rethinking, first with DVDs by mail, then streaming, then content creation. While Blockbuster defended its old story, Netflix rewrote its own story again and again. Today, one company is a global entertainment powerhouse. The other is a cautionary tale about the cost of refusing to rethink. This example underscores a powerful truth. The ability to rethink is not merely a skill, it is a survival mechanism. And in a rapidly changing world, economically, technologically, culturally, the question is no longer whether rethinking is necessary, but how quickly we can do it. At the heart of this process is emotional humility, the willingness to admit that we might be wrong, the willingness to let go of pride in exchange for progress. Many people fear this humility because they believe it signals weakness, but in reality, it signals maturity, strength, and grounded self-confidence. It shows that we are anchored enough in who we are, that we do not feel threatened by new information or challenged perspectives. In American public life, institutional rethinking has often emerged most powerfully during moments of crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic forced countless sectors, from education to healthcare, from corporate offices to government agencies, to re-evaluate long-standing assumptions. The idea that work must be done in physical offices 5 days a week suddenly collapsed under the weight of necessity. Millions discovered remote work made them more productive, more balanced, and, in some cases, more creative. Companies that rethought early, like Twitter, Zoom, Shopify, and several US-based digital firms, thrived. Those that resisted rethinking struggled to adapt, losing employees and momentum. Again, rethinking proved itself not only intellectually wise, but pragmatically essential. This same logic applies to personal beliefs as well. For decades, people believed that intelligence was a fixed trait. You were either smart or not. But modern research, especially in the American education system, has illuminated the truth of growth mindset. Intelligence can be developed through learning, practice, and openness to challenge. Students who rethink their own limitations outperform those who cling to a fixed identity. Adults who see themselves as ongoing learners expand their opportunities far beyond those who see themselves as finished products. Rethinking becomes the gateway to self-expansion.
And this theme continues when we examine relationships. Many relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, break down not because of dramatic betrayals or irreconcilable differences, but because people fail to rethink the way they communicate, the way they interpret actions, the way they respond to conflict. Adam Grant emphasizes that curiosity can save relationships. Instead of assuming we know what the other person meant, we ask. Instead of defending our ego, we seek understanding. Instead of reacting, we reflect. This simple shift can prevent countless unnecessary conflicts. In America alone, therapists and relationship experts continue to stress the power of rethinking habitual emotional responses, because the biggest breakthroughs often come not from changing the other person, but changing how we see the situation. One of the most transformative lessons Grant presents is that new knowledge does not threaten identity. Rigidity does. When people believe their worth is tied to always being right, they fear rethinking like one fears losing a limb. But when they instead base their identity on curiosity, flexibility, and growth, rethinking becomes an extension of who they are. This is why the most innovative individuals and organizations do not pride themselves on having the right answers, they pride themselves on asking the right questions. They do not worship certainty, they celebrate exploration. They do not cling to a single way of doing things, they evolve continuously.
And the people who thrive in this state operate in what Grant calls the scientist mode, a mentality defined by constant experimentation, constant analysis, and constant openness to being wrong. They are not threatened by evidence, they are enlightened by it. A powerful illustration of this comes from the American aviation industry. After major incidents or air travel accidents, investigators do not look for individuals to blame. They look for systems to rethink. Every failure is treated as data. Every mistake becomes an opportunity to redesign something stronger. This culture of continuous reevaluation is precisely why aviation today is one of the safest forms of travel. They do not hide from mistakes, they interrogate them. They do not punish error, they learn from it. This mindset, one of institutional humility and structured rethinking, has saved millions of lives. And just as industries must rethink to survive, individuals must rethink to grow. A person who stops questioning their habits becomes stuck in routines that no longer serve them. A person who stops questioning their goals continues chasing dreams that no longer match who they are becoming. A person who stops questioning their environment remains confined in circles that limit their potential. Rethinking is the antidote to stagnation. One of the most compelling modern examples of personal rethinking can be seen in the story of Lizzo, the American musician. She spent years believing she was not good enough, talented enough, or worthy enough to succeed in the music industry. But as she began rethinking her insecurities and embracing self-acceptance, her creativity exploded. She began releasing music rooted in confidence and authenticity rather than fear. Today, she is a global star whose message of self-empowerment resonates worldwide because she first learned to think again about her own worth. This pattern repeats across cultures. In Nigeria, Kenya, India, Brazil, South Korea, people who reinvent their thinking reinvent their lives. Entrepreneurs who rethink their business models create opportunities for entire communities. Leaders who rethink old traditions breathe new life into organizations. Innovators who rethink outdated norms build bridges to the future. Adam Grant's work makes one truth unmistakably clear. Rethinking is not an event, it is a continuous way of living. And to live in this way is to unlock a level of intellectual agility, emotional resilience, and personal power that transforms everything it touches. The journey of rethinking culminates in a mindset that can be summarized simply: stay open, stay curious, stay adaptable. Instead of defending who you were, commit to becoming who you can be. Instead of idolizing your past knowledge, keep reaching for better understanding. Instead of clinging to static identity, embrace dynamic growth. The world changes, life changes, and every day holds the possibility of new insight. The person who thrives is the one who keeps their mind awake to those insights. Ultimately, Think Again is not merely a book, it is an invitation. It calls you to challenge yourself, to question your old assumptions, to welcome constructive conflict, to listen with humility, to rethink without fear, to discover that being wrong is not a failure, but a doorway to higher wisdom. It calls you to live in a state of perpetual learning, perpetual evolution, perpetual possibility. And once a person embraces this way of thinking, they become unstoppable, not because they know everything, but because they are willing to learn anything.